what do I think of the Mortal Kombat 1 controversy? Is that the controversy with like Tanya and the fact that people brought up that now she's ugly, now she's black, now she's a lesbian character. Let's rally to the sun, let's get our pitchforks, let's go on and go forth onto this ongoing and rampant culture war. And I just wanted to break this down because I found it hilarious in several ways. So I want to tackle the first point. Tanya is black. Now, I don't think it's really identify that she's anything other than Edenian. Like I'm 99% sure, like, ethnicity be damned, let's just simply stick to the basics. Tanya is Edenian, and that's it. Now, she is a fairly dark-skinned character. She was dark-skinned since her first inception on Mortal Kombat 4, I believe. And it's weird that we have this sort of history where people don't pay attention to it and they don't see how the character progressed from there. She's always been a fairly dark-skinned character, moving from Mortal Kombat 4 to Mortal Kombat X to now. And the topic of Tanya being, well, lesbian or whatever, there was pre-fight dialogue with her and Melina, and you see Melina and Tanya's growing bond in Mortal Kombat 1. There was pre-fight dialogue in Mortal Kombat X saying that, and hopefully that's the one I'm thinking of, Mortal Kombat X, where they have this really flirtatious dialogue between the two. Melina is bisexual, Tanya loves Melina, and that is her servant. She will do anything for Melina no matter what. So we have established lore that wasn't really altered that much in the past and is coming into fruition now, even though we have a rebooted, recycled, remixed timeline. I don't see the problem, even though Mortal Kombat people now are complaining about the fact that they're changing too much, even though it is literally an internal reboot. So they're keeping elements from those characters and integrating them into this new game. I don't see the problem. Once again, if it was already established, then we already know how these characters are and how they interact and what their orientation is. So before people say, oh, it's just on some woke shit, it was already there in the past. You just needed to pay attention. It's sort of the same equivalent to people complaining about Bill in Last of Us, even though he was made to be the way he was. And then lastly, the stuff on Tanya's face, and it's this big topic in gaming about how characters should look and how they should be represented. And I think this falls under the umbrella that people are just, now it's not everybody, it's some people when I say this, but there are just those people that are that chronically horny person that can't get over that a pixel does not look the way they think it needs to look or it needs to be represented. And I just think that's absolutely hilarious. Like, overall, when people make this logic and say a game looks like shit or a character looks like shit and then they wind up playing anyway, it's that weird fear of missing out, and they don't stand on their own square and actually boycott said game. If you don't enjoy a look and you don't want to give a developer money, why do people constantly give these games cash and then they complain about other people being sheep? I see it all the fucking time. It's so hypocritical. I saw people complaining about Aloy's face. Oh, too much peach fuzz. Oh, look at these weird woke developers, I'm not supporting this shit. And then because of the fear of missing out and those green numbers on Metacritic or Rotten Tomatoes, and when they see all that shit, they go and watch the movie anyway or talk about it to death as if they're almost advertising said product. I don't understand this mentality or logic if you really hinge on the idea of a digitized character not looking the way you want. I see it time and time again, and when I see the excuse, people just say, oh, well, you know, instead of voting with my wallet, there's nothing else out to play, or I want to buy this thing to constantly shit on it. And I see 9 times out of 10, some of these people that do that, they end up enjoying it. It's a little bit more to a video game than just how a character looks. I can see why there are games that have a realistic style to them or an anime style, because when it devolves into this whole East versus West culture, you got to realize that everyone has different styles. Even them, sometimes the East will use ideas from the West, sometimes the West will use ideas from the East, and vice versa. That's how it's always been since this whole culture thing got ingrained in the first place. You will see adaptations where people are clearly influenced by anime from the West, and then you will see adaptations where Japan will take actors and set them to realistic standards. Even though people hate that word, Resident Evil started and began using those real life actors in the cutscenes and embodying their personas of who they are to create and show their characters. You had the live action opening, Chris Redfield, Jill Valentine, Albert Wesker, Barry Burton, and Resident Evil is not a super anime like Final Fantasy stylized game in terms of graphics. It's more grounded and realistic and Americanized with how the characters look. America is a big influence on that series. So once again, me personally, the chronically online and horny gamer, it's weird because once again, you're not getting any sort of reciprocation from these characters in terms of love or lust. It's just us simply liking the idea of a look, and that's it. We're not fucking these characters. We can't get anything from them. So it doesn't make or break the game for me outside of just an entertainment value. I care about these characters being represented in the story. I care about the performance, I care about the script, I care about the gameplay, obviously, if it's fun to play or not, and some people's whole personality is basically cycling around the idea of a character being sexualized or not. Now, of course, fan service, is it okay? Of course, absolutely. There's nothing wrong with fan service at the end of the day. However, I think people take it to extreme, and when they don't get what they want, or if a character is not portrayed sexually, then they automatically decide to cycle this and say, oh, the game is trash, I'm not getting it. But again, FOMO is really important. If you're not getting something, I expect people to adhere and follow that same exact premise. And once again, fear of missing out, it embodies everyone. So when people say they aren't playing these Western games anymore, it's just quite weird that because of a look and because you say, oh, well, I don't like the fact that this character is not over sexualized enough, or this character is ugly, is quite funny and quite weird and quite hypocritical when you are playing that said game at launch just because it has a green number on a review site that happens to be positive. It sort of defeats your whole purpose of saying, well, this whole establishment of West is really, really shit and terrible, when you're not voting with your wallet in the first place. I'm Renegade Operative, and that's kind of what I think about the whole fact of people calling characters ugly and then they end up supporting the same product anyway, despite being very, very anti-West. And I understand that East and West, they have distinct styles, and both of them use those distinct styles, and I just play video games just to play them, not to jack off, man. It's just, it is what it is. People get very, very angry about that, but again, if this is your philosophy to stand on your square and say, fuck this, I'm out, I expect you to act like it and not basically bend the knee to a review that's positive, and everybody else is playing. It's like, oh shit, I got the fucking shingles, I better just go ahead and buy this game, get a used copy, and make every excuse under the sun. Sex does not dictate my love and affinity for video games. It's just, you know, it's part of the pie if they have it, and if they don't, then it really doesn't matter. There's several factors to building a video game besides how a character looks. When people say that sex appeal dictates everything in the media, I just can't help but laugh at that, because people want the MK9 rendition of sex and tits and ass and torn costumes, and that ultimately did not supersede the idea of MK11 and MKX existing and outselling that previous game. Both of those games outsold MK9. I'm pretty sure they did. MK11 is like right now one of the highest selling MKs. So if sex appeal dictated everything in every sort of medium and every sort of market, and I'm not saying that there isn't a demographic for it, if it dictated everything, why is it that the game that was MK9 couldn't hold a candle to them altering Jade and people complaining about it, and ultimately nothing coming out of it, turning it into a nothing burger? Why is that? It's because the general population or the general audience, they do not give a fuck. They do not care about your opinions on this stuff, and you have to realize that sometimes it's just very, very vocalized, but it is a vocal minority. If this stuff was really, really, really that loud, then Jade would have been altered no problem, and we would have got the MK9 style of costumes, but that didn't happen. And the game went on to do well because a lot of people were invested into what NRS was offering at the time. It's just is what it is. It's basic routine bitch business 101. So I think what happens in these controversies is that overall, some of these games that end up succeeding that people complain about and they drum up Nontroversies, which is nothing that's really a big deal, it turns into a nothing burger. Aesthetically speaking, NetherRealm, they've taken looks from the beta, they've sharpened up graphics like Injustice 2 Supergirl, where people saw that and they were saying, oh, the graphics don't look that great, and they wound up fixing them. And there was a difference between the older builds that we played and the final build, as opposed to just sitting there and saying, I'm going to rah and rally against. Why not just wait until the actual fucking final build is released? Because some of these trailers, we could be looking at older builds, unfinished models, or non-polished models. Definitely, we're looking at compressed video. So that's also going to factor in as well when assessing these gameplay graphics. It's a lot of factors involved to that too. And I just think it's a line of people that aren't thinking properly when they decide to say, oh, these characters are this, that, and the third, and then they end up playing it anyway. It makes no fucking sense. Always didn't make any fucking sense. And am I dictated by my cock to simply say, am I going to buy a video game or not? No, I'm gonna buy a video game because I'm simply digging the idea, the premise, the story, what's presented, and that is the actual cause for me going out and enjoying that video game. Replay value, all that other shit. I play games for games. I don't play games for how a character looks. They can look cool, but am I looking for, oh man, oh, them tits are not out, I'm not gonna buy this, it's a waste of money? No. Go to a strip club, get a hooker, do something. At least you could physically touch those. Like, do something else, as opposed to diminishing the game and saying it's a fucking 0 out of 10 because the character doesn't look the way you want them to look and you have some conforming beauty standards about them. You know, just do that shit outside where people actually could be touched or interacted with and see what happens. And I don't know if these people have like great social skills, but I probably doubt it. I probably doubt it. All right, so that is my rant over. I think this whole Tanya face controversy is a big nothing burger. I don't think overall in the grand scheme of things it's going to affect anything. I think it is 100% clout chasing, video baits or politic baits that people turn it into, and ultimately I doubt it's going to damage NRS in the long run, especially if they touch up on the graphics yet again. And I'm looking forward to MK1. I'm looking forward to MK1. I like MK11. I'm looking forward to MK1. I've been there when people were complaining about Jade. Did it really affect the game? Absolutely not. It wasn't even the most important thing to the game. It was just something that people talked about. That was it. So we'll see what happens with MK1, but I think the same, you know, as they always say, history repeats. The same goes for Nontroversy's. History repeats, and it's overall going to amount to absolutely nothing. Oh yeah, and one last counterpoint before I end off this video. I'm sure people are gonna try to call out the fact that I said, oh well, we fixed Supergirl in Injustice 2 because the gamers complained that she was ugly. Well, that was part of the online discourse, surely, but I don't think NRS came out and specifically said that. I'm not a game developer, and you aren't either. I think the reason why they touched up on the graphics was because they knew they could make them better. A lot of people were affected by that graphical change being slightly updated. It wasn't just Supergirl, it was Superman, it was her, it was Batman, it was Arthur Curry, it was Aquaman. You know, he got like graphically updated too. It was almost everyone because they knew they could make the game look better. I don't think they gave a fuck about all your ranting and agenda wars when they knew deep down. And I know developers, they watch like threads of everyone's complaints, but if they cared as much about the online discourse all the time with these nothing burgers, then Jade would have been fixed according to you. I think what they did there in Injustice was alter the graphics to be better, and that's it. I don't think they really did that for anything else outside of just that one notion. So before someone says, I got you, it's not. It's typical game development 101. You enhance from older builds if you have the time, money, research, and application. That's usually what happens. And I'm not a fucking game developer, but I know that has to be the steps taken when you finally get close to that gold master. It's just common sense. Usually when you embark on anger, change, and revolution, and you just put your pitchforks to the sun, it's supposed to get something done, right? Why wasn't the idea of John Bubenak's face reversed for Spider-Man when they changed his face and people didn't like it? It didn't happen. Was MJ's face reversed for Spider-Man 2, given the fact that people don't like it currently? No. Horizon went on to sell millions of copies and they didn't change Aloy's face. You know, they didn't alter the peach fuzz, so to speak, just because people online were complaining about it. No. And the general audience still didn't care. What else happened? The whole Ashley upskirt thing, did that stop Resident Evil 4 remake from selling like 5 million copies? Absolutely not. See, you could be of the mindset of saying sex sales, and this is part of the equation. But overall, there's a lot going on for that video game to sell, for that appeal to sell, for that thing that general audiences gravitate to, which is just a fun looking time. And ultimately speaking, sometimes sex has little to do with that. You know, I saw people complaining that Rivet was fucking censored, didn't have her cheeks out, wasn't cute enough, got downgraded. Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart still gravitated attention from gamers who really didn't care about that stuff. So I think gamers are gonna really, like the legitimate ones, they're gonna go where the games are. And if you like tits and ass and all that stuff, there's a market. There's Pornhub, there's Cornhub, xvideos.com, you know, fan art, Rule 34. You know, nothing is neglecting you from looking at those characters in a risque way. There's alternatives out there, but when you say that the video game is bad just because of a certain tenure that you have against the game, then I just think that you need to do something else with your time and understand these are fictional characters, as Ben Affleck said in one of those fucking movies. It's not that big a deal. You have PC gaming. If the game is a third-party game or first-party coming to a platform like PC, because PlayStation did say they're gonna dump their games on PC eventually, then you have mods. You can have these characters walk around naked to much of your delight, and I don't see what the issue is. You have the tool to resolve the problem. I never fucking understood that. Like, it's like fucking workman's comp 101. You have the toolbox to resolve the horny problem, but you're still getting agitated, as opposed to just saying, I'm gonna go to the modding community where all my tits and ass and fucking glorious Flash McGee exists there. Like, you have the tool to remedy the issue where they are fixing all of these faces, quote unquote, because people find it to be this way. They find it to be a problem. Why not utilize the mods? You see what I'm saying? This is not an overall problem to the vast majority of people who play video games, just because, like I said once before, I'll say it again, the casual audience, the general audience, they don't feel the same. They don't care. Like, the people who complain about this, you are a tiny, minuscule subsect in the grand scheme of things. Like ants, vocal minorities. This never affected sales in the point of a game just not doing well because it doesn't have sex appeal from a previously established game. Mortal Kombat was risque. Now it's all about the fighting mechanics. Now it's all about the importance of these grand cinematic plots, and they left things behind. Like, it's also just a fact of people don't want things left behind when a company or idea or person or premise decides to move forward and focus on more important things. And I'm kind of glad that MK got better in the gameplay department, because, you know, a lot of people said this in the past, you can have a product that is flash and no substance. And I heard that said about Mortal Kombat time and time again. That, oh, it's bogus shit. The uppercuts do like fucking 50% damage. This sucks. Street Fighter is better. They focus on refining those things, and people don't pay them much mind or attention, but some people do. Like, well, the majority does, so I shouldn't even say all that. And we're focused about, you know, the aesthetics of some of these characters. Now, I will say that Scarlet being unclothed, that makes sense, because I don't mind the character being risque if it makes sense to the story and overall premise and whatnot. I wouldn't say that anything is wrong with the blood being on her skin and she needs to be exposed. Stuff like Quiet being exposed because that's how she breathes. All of that makes sense. So when I look at the opposite side on that perspective, I get it. At the same time, I don't understand people wanting fucking characters like Rivet to be running around in like a rated E for everyone game with their cheeks out. Or I heard that, as my phone goes off, I heard that they got rid of panty shots in Skullgirls and people were throwing fucking conniption over that. But one of the characters I heard was underaged, and then you get these weird people that start to defend underage characters, and I'm just like lollies, and I'm just like, ugh, like, what the fuck is wrong with people? Like, what the fuck? You get those demographics and crowds, and they're like just bullheaded to their stances, and it just gets kind of weird, man. Like, I just think these people are kind of fucking weird when you start reading comments that venture into that terrain. And sometimes it does, believe me, I've seen enough cancer on Twitter for a lifetime. Anyway, that's the end of my discussion. That's the end of my little sort of analysis as to this whole sex appeal debate. Like, you know, just relax and be a PC gamer and use your tools to your advantage if that really bothers you, but it doesn't bother the majority. See you guys next time. Later.